Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 442. We talk JLA, Gods and Monsters. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, the Duke of You-Know, the elder statesman of the podcast. And, Jim, we're talking Gods and Monsters. Woohoo! We're going to be on this episode not only talking JLA Gods and Monsters, we're going to talk about some of the... I'll real quickly talk about the shorts, because you haven't seen them. And we're also going to talk about the trailer for Bad Blood, the Batman movie that's coming up as well. We have 2 great listener voicemails, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into that. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Jim, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com are kind enough to continue supporting our show. Can you tell us a little bit of what's going on at DCBService.com?
Well, always we got the great bundles, and we have the 25 returning line, the 25 titles within the returning line bundle. They have a monster variant this month, 45% off, only $49.25. But the really, really big news that I got to make sure we shout out is Batman and Robin Eternal, issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's right. The sequel to last year's Batman Eternal weekly series is back once again. DCBS is doing some great stuff with issue number 1. They're giving a 50% discount. DCBS price is $199. Issues 2, 3, and 4 are at 40% off. Each issue $179.
I want to shout it over at InStockTrades.com. Gotham by Midnight. We're talking about the deals of the week. Gotham by Midnight, Volume 1, 50% off, only $7.49. Powers, I want to shout this out. I'm reading Power. I'm not reading Power. I'm watching Powers on the PlayStation. I've got my PlayStation 4, and I'll pop it up. And one of the original series that's on there is Powers right now, which is the Brian Michael Bendis, Michael Avon Omeg series. They have the Omnibus Volume 1, which I haven't read. I've read a few issues of Powers, and I really enjoyed what I read. It's one of those things due to time. I just haven't gotten to it. I'm going to pick up this Omnibus. It's 50% off, only $62.50. Wonder Woman by George Perez Omnibus hardcover, 50% off, only $37.50. I adore that run. If you haven't read that, do yourself a favor. Great stuff over there for their deals of the week. They do have, under their latest releases, too, Superman, The Men of Tomorrow, with Jeff Johns, John Romita Jr., and the whole crew. That's Volume 6, the hardcover. It's 42% off, only $14.49. If you're looking for it, InStockTrades.com has it, and you're going to get it on special. So please support our show sponsor. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of Justice League, Gods and Monsters. So if you haven't watched the movie, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Without further ado, let's go read that movie.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be chatting Justice League Gods and Monsters, and this was the latest DC Universe animated release. And you and I haven't had a chance to do one of these on the show in a while, and we quite like these direct DVD, Blu-ray, digital releases. This one's unique, and I really wanted to talk about this one because this embraces DC's concept of the multiverse and Elseworlds. And it really was a chance for this creative team, the writing team and everything, to craft their own versions, their own takes on what it would be like if they made Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. What I loved, though, besides them, was all of the cameos of the other DC characters in this world and how they played out in this world. And I love the 3 shorts that went along with it. That's my take on it. I really dug this, and I want to talk about why. But what is your take on it? Like, did you get the same experience I did out of this one?
Oh, yeah, definitely got the same experience. But it was weird because my path was a little bit different than yours because I really didn't know what the deal was with the movie. So I thought it was an evil version of the Justice League, not just an alternate version of them, especially because I saw images of Superman with the goatee, and that's, your classic, you got the goatee, you must be evil. Something, and okay, so we were doing an evil version of the Justice League, and I heard vaguely about, Batman being a vampire. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was kind of going into that route. And then once the movie got going and got flowing, I realized, okay, they're not evil, they're just a different version. So they still are heroes, they just operate differently. They've got different stories and backstories and whatnot. So I was like, okay, so that for me was a really cool, just an experience, and I deeply enjoyed this one. And I think it's kind of one of those where thinking one thing and then finding out it's something else completely was like, yeah. And with you, I like seeing the cameos, and I like recognizing people saying, hey, oh, cool, that's Ryan Choi. Oh, John Henry, yeah.
It's funny. I'm watching the opening of the movie, and I'm running it along while we're chatting right now on my Apple TV just to kind of go through the whole thing. I love the Warner Brothers animation logo. It takes me back. As a kid, I loved Looney Tunes and all that. I love just seeing animation companies that are still in existence and still doing this, the hand-drawn animation. I know nowadays a lot's done digitally with computers and all that, and I love that too. I just love the creativity of stories being developed hand-drawn. The opening with Superman's origin, this Superman's origin, with Jor-El and Lara, for me, I knew this was going to be Elseworlds. I didn't know the origin of Superman. I kind of deliberately stayed away from that. And the bits with Zod, and seeing Zod come in with his ego and kind of, he made the mistake. He doomed Krypton. But, knowing that Jor-El and what Jor-El was doing is the only way for him to continue on or to continue his legacy, he comes there and he's, clutching his side when he's, obviously been shot from battle and things like that. But the real thing for me and the twisted nature of this was him deciding that the child that was leaving was going to be his and Lara's, not Jor-El and Lara's. I loved every minute of that because I knew it was a different Superman, but I didn't think it was going to be Zod's kid.
Yeah. And I got to disagree with you on something there.
What?
Zod didn't mess up. He was given inconclusive evidence. The fact that Jor-El said the planet was going to explode wasn't exact enough. It wasn't Zod's fault. It was Jor-El's fault. That was the stuff I felt. He's like, everyone kept telling you you're going to blow up the planet. It was inconclusive. No, blow up the planet's very conclusive. That's a very definite answer.
That ship, when it takes off, I like that version of it. I thought it was a really cool version of the Superman ship. That's one of the nice things about when you're doing kind of your own reboot, is that you can kind of play around with the art style a little bit. This all looks very Krypton. It looks very Krypton technology. It's everything that we're used to on that. But I loved their little take on the spaceship because it was a different twist on it than I'd seen before.
Yeah, and part of me wishes as the ship was taking off, he would have yelled, "Have them kneel before you!" Just because I am a kick. I do enjoy the kneel before Zod, but he did throw out the, let them feel your rage. So there is still kind of that's still a very Zod statement. It's very Zod quality, but just part of me was like, come on, say it. Kneel before Zod, kneel before, or throughout even the movie, I wanted Superman to tell someone to kneel before him, just because I'm such a kid for that. I always get giddy with that line.
As the ship's traveling, they do that kind of, we're used to seeing that he learned from Jor-El during the travels, but in this case you see the basically the egg dividing and forming into cells to become the baby, and it's a very different sort of foreboding. This is Zod's kid coming to Earth and what he was going to be like. I was wondering, like you, is he going to wind up being a little bit more evil? And I don't know that I thought that these characters at any point in time were evil. And I know you aren't saying that either. They are harsher, though. I mean, this really is like the world where Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman are more Punisher-esque than they are traditional Superman, shall we say?
Heat vision to the head is definitely Punisher-esque, and especially on normal people. If Superman was killing, a superpower person, that's one thing. He's going up against guys with machine guns who have absolutely no chance of doing any harm to him. And instead of just stopping them or disarming them, he's killing them. And I thought that was, first time seeing that was something that really caught my eye going, whoa. And just like you with the foreboding of the baby, I loved when, as the kid's fully grown, the last thing you see is him clenching his fist.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, that's Zod's kid.
I'm looking at Lex Luthor right now when he's coming in, and this would be such a Lex Luthor thing. You know, Luthor's running to the craft and trying to check out what's going on. I liked the ethnic background of Superman in this. I liked that they played around with that a little bit. These are, you know, family. They ended up taking him in, and he has a different sort of ethnic background, a different sort of upbringing. I liked the take on Superman just as much as I liked the take on Batman and Wonder Woman. They didn't go traditional. You know, it wasn't Clark, it wasn't Diana, it wasn't Bruce. These are three different characters. The timeline shifted enough that three different people became these heavy hitters in this version of the DC Universe. That part I really found engaging because I wanted to know more about the characters and whether or not I even liked them.
Yeah, I wanted to see how he actually arrived at Metropolis, because it made sense for our version of Clark, but this version, because of the nature of his adopted parents and just being migrant workers and traveling, I wanted to see that journey. I wish some way to see that journey and how he ended up in actually Metropolis, how that got chosen as the site for the Tower of Justice.
And I think it was because it was the biggest city at that point in time. He had become, we're not used to Superman being pomp and circumstance and like posturing. This Superman's all about posturing. Like, even I'm watching the sequence right now where the three of them are floating down to attack the enemy for the first time. And even the way they just come in, it's so like ego driven, you know, so they're floating down kind of like, we got this. Yeah. which is a very unique look with these particular superheroes, because we're not used to seeing them that way. They're more humble. Yeah, or in Batman, you're trying not to be seen versus be seen.
And I really digged, as you said, that entrance was awesome. And then once they started the fight, once that got going, you saw each of them, with their main style. Superman was up front, blasting people. Wonder Woman moving, bobbing, with the sword, blocking, cutting, and slashing. And then I love this version of Batman in that it's constantly that move. He's got the Jackie Chan fight style where he's just moving constantly, snapping neck, snap neck, drain blood, snap neck, drain blood, flip flop around, grab the guy, spin him so his machine gun shoots his partner. He was just bopping all over the place. I thought that was a really cool version of Batman.
And just breaking necks. Like, Superman's like, not only is Superman knocking them down from the platform that they're on, but then he is blasting them with heat vision as they go down. So it's not even like, what is the minimum amount I need to do to take them down? We're taking care of them with extreme prejudice. I mean, it's like, whoa. And I love that it's not Clark, Bruce, and Diana, because it's a lot easier to be forgiving of that and kind of go, oh, this is kind of a cool thing to watch in this format, because they aren't those guys. If it was Clark, I would have an issue with it. I don't here. I love it here.
Yeah. I don't think they ever said his adopted name in this. He was always referred to as Superman.
Yeah.
Which is always interesting, because a lot of times when we have conversation about Superman, we always call him Clark, and we always say Bruce and Diana. Whereas with these characters, they were Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, even though Batman was Kurt. So there was times when we got to see the quote-unquote human side of him. But when it came to Superman and Wonder Woman, they were really always in character.
Well, Superman's real name was Hernan Guerrera.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that was I don't remember that being stated in the film either, but maybe it was, and it wasn't, made a big deal of. But that was what his name was. Batman was obviously Kirk Langstrom, and Wonder Woman was Becca. I don't remember the name being prominent either. I'm looking at IMDb right now just to kind of go through, Benjamin Bratt played Superman, Michael C. Hall played Batman, Tamara Taylor, Wonder Woman. Who was a great one in this? Steve Trevor.
Yes.
That dude cannot catch a break, though.
Well, he kind of caught a break.
Well, we kind of got broken at certain times, too.
Yeah, he's got a little bit tough on him. But in the end, he lived. So there's a plus.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I guess. Was there anybody in this, as you're kind of watching through it, that you were really didn't like the take of, or you were shocked by?
I wouldn't say didn't like. it did, that initial first kill for all of them, and that first opening fight sequence was a bit of a, whoa, we're going to have an interesting story here, just because of, as you said, Superman terminating with extreme prejudice. And when they knocked that one scene when they knocked the big door down and all those regular people just get crushed, and you see the blood splatter come out, and just the level of violence that they were doing, and what a level of killing did catch me off guard. But I wouldn't say I didn't disliked it. I really enjoyed, again, seeing these different characters, just seeing them tweak with it and have fun with it and actually take a creative, because they weren't being gratuitous or graphic for sake of just being graphic. There was storylines behind it. There was understanding and a reasoning to why they were doing what they did. I think that was something that was told and crafted really well within the story of giving us their backstories, and how they didn't just open up backstory. They fed them into the story. We didn't really see Becca's until the near past the halfway point.
Now, in this story, I'm watching the sequence with Lois Lane, and I loved the use of Lois Lane in this one. But more importantly, Lex Luthor, and them both, in many ways, talking about how the world should fear and be cautious of these three. They're running amok and really being judge, jury, and executioner. These are really the Luthor's fears that we see in the New 52, that we've seen actually in the previous universe with Lex Luthor and a lot of portrayals of him coming to life here. Because here's the thing, as much as I enjoyed watching these characters, I agree with Luthor in this one. When he's having the argument, they're dangerous. I mean, really, really dangerous. Because while I think they would go out of their way not to let innocents be hurt, I'm not entirely convinced that that's a priority.
No, definitely not. There's collateral. They're willing to accept collateral damage. Now, they're not, as they point out, periodically through the thing, that they're only killing the bad guys. Especially Kurt's only draining blood from the bad guys, and he was mixing up the fake protoplasm to regular feed on, and even Superman, when Lois comments on the fact that they killed all terrorists, it's like, about time she got to that point. They're still only killing bad guys, but if an innocent person dies, they'll chalk up the collateral damage, whereas the regular Superman would rush for the save, and a lot of villains use that against them. The fact that they do put the innocent lives ahead of their own, and it was kind of a neat thing to again. We never really saw that, but understanding of who these characters are, I'm very comfortable saying this is how they would handle it. This would be their MO.
The scientists being gradually killed. Especially, like Victor Freeze, I'm watching that sequence right now by the Batman archetype robot. I didn't see that going where it did. I didn't see it being a frame job at first. I was wondering why the scientists were being killed. And then as it went on, I liked the way that it played out, that, you started to realize, oh my gosh, there's a pattern here, especially when you see the second robot, and it was so much more like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Those type of things were where this really started to take on a life for me. I'm like, somebody's framing them, and why they're doing it was intriguing to me. This leads to that whole, later on we'll find out, it's that the project, was it Fair Play? Fair Play, yeah, named after Mr. Terrific, right?
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that they could take down these heroes. It's very much like what Batman had done with his own protocols. Just in case the Justice League were ever a danger, we need to have something in place to take them down. But this was antagonizing them, putting them in a situation where the people of Earth had no idea but to react. Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi was so great with the miniature horses.
Here's the thing with me, because I agree with you. I love the robots. I didn't realize what was going on until the sequence when they have that clean sweep of the scientists. I actually thought it was future version of the Justice League coming back.
Really?
Killing scientists and people who would end up, because you have that scene where Superman and Wonder Woman are talking about how, maybe taking over, it's, their ties with the,
oh, because you thought they
were getting, we're always questioning dicey. And, I was thinking they came back in time to stop the people who would be the future resistance movement.
Here's the difference why we watched it differently. You thought they were evil. I didn't. Right. I really thought they were more Punisher-like than evil and trying to take over the planet. So I think it's why we looked at that differently. When I saw the robot come with the sword and the boots, I'm like, oh, that's like a Wonder Woman one. And this, I'm watching that sequence right now with Ray Palmer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, they're trying to frame them up. But that's because I didn't think they were evil. If I was thinking the way you were, I might be thinking the same thing because of the fact that you thought that they were trying to, like, you thought they were doing like
conquer the world,
like Terminator. You thought they were coming
exactly.
back, ending the resistance, so that way this could actually happen, right? Is that what you're going for?
That's what I was thinking, and it wasn't until Diana actually thrusts her sword through one of the robots, and you see the sparks fly. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a robot. Yeah. Okay, that's not them, and that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, okay, that's when the whole frame job, everything. That's when I was like, this really is a frame job. Oh, and then of course I'll admit I didn't see it until they finally revealed who the main bad guy was. And, Magnus, and even though I saw it was a robot and I should have known robot, they did such a great job of getting us to think that Magnus and Kurt were good friends. And then with Tina and everything, they did a great job of just laying that groundwork. I completely did not think it was him, behind all of this.
Always silence your cell phone, Jim.
Yes. Oh, God. Always silence your cell phone.
Especially if you're Ray
Palmer.
Poor
guy.
I liked the, what was it, a tiger or a panther or something? A tiger. It was a tiger, wasn't it, that walked off with the miniature horse in his mouth?
That's a mountain lion.
Mountain lion? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was just such a grim way to end the whole thing.
Little mini horse in his mouth, and he's just trotting off. Yum.
Magnus and Tina, when they were sitting there, first of all, I felt like a complete idiot when they revealed later that she was platinum.
Yeah.
I felt like a complete moron that I didn't catch on to that one. But Magnus with the pipe, they swerved me. I totally thought he was a good guy. I didn't think that. I thought he was, going to be an important secondary character that was friends with Kirk Langstrom. In many ways, you could say he's almost as Alfred, because the fact that they were collaborating with each other. Maybe his Dick Grayson or something like that, in the sense that it had that kind of relationship. I had no idea where they were going to go with him because they sold. Did you see him being a bad guy?
No, completely 100% swerve. Even after I realized those were actually robots. Mm-hmm. I still didn't think him, even though he's the robot guy, and it should have been completely natural in my head. They did such a great job just creating the character, creating that friendship, and creating just how they were interacting. That was a beautiful job of that was a beautiful swerve.
Yeah, one of the things that I think worked with it, because you mentioned the robots, because the robots didn't look like Will Magnus's Metal Men typically. I was under the assumption that it wasn't the Metal Men.
Yeah.
And so that maybe Magnus's robots were going to help out in the fights. I didn't think that he was going to wind up being the bad guy. They really swerved me well with that one.
Especially they showed tin. So I was sitting there going, I saw a tin. I'm like, oh, where's lead, gold, and mercury? I'm like, oh, come on, where are the others? And I was waiting for the other metal men to show up. And again, I'm like you. I felt like an idiot when Tina turned out to be platinum. I'm like, oh my God, that's even what they call her in the book, Tina.
Right?
And I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. That was just absolutely wonderful. Again, beautiful swerve. Completely had me going. I loved it.
Victor and Silas Stone. What a sequence that was. With Silas with his weapon and seeing a young Vic Stone. They even took out the kid.
Well, that was another swerve. That was another huge one, because I was expecting, because you saw the weapons that he was developing, like that's the future generation of Cyborg.
Sure.
I was thinking Silas was going to get killed and Victor would become Cyborg. And Victor would actually, the weapon, and I was expecting us to kind of see a birth of a darker, eviler Cyborg who became Cyborg because his father was killed. So I was thinking a darker version of Cyborg. I was like, yeah, and then especially like with Ryan Choi in the beginning when they show Ryan lived but Ray dies. I'm like, okay, so that's how he becomes the Atom, because he's going to avenge, Ray Palmer. Victor's going to be avenging his father, and so it was feeding my notion that this was the birth of the resistance against the Justice League. So I'm crafting this story in my head, and then I see the kid get fried. I go, okay, that story ain't gonna work.
It was really cool because I kept getting swerved along the way too, and I liked that. I liked it as a story. You know what I liked about it? The whole thing was engaging, and there was nothing in it that felt out of character for what they were developing here. But because I was so used to the particular archetypes that we usually have, I kept expecting certain things that they were going to put into place, and nothing played out the way that I thought it was going to. And I really enjoyed that. Oh, what a grim sequence when Superman flies in and sees what happened to the two skeletons.
Well, and he even showed a little bit of his tender side there, which I thought was kind of neat. That they kind of dropped, the coldness, but again, he is heavy-handed because of his life experiences. He didn't grow up on a Kansas farm with two loving parents. He grew up with the migrant workers where they were being mistreated basically just because of who they were. And, he got dealt the harsh reality of what humanity is, so he, was harsh back. And I think that, again, but you really see, though, that tender moment. I love, again, there was some really cool moments. And just him and Lois Lane going back and forth, For me, I'm always a Lois and Clark kind of guy. But seeing those butt heads, seeing those two go up against each other and be adversary was a really cool dynamic.
This Batman and his analysis of things, as they're using the computers to analyze, I like his cold, detached nature. I mean, he's very scientific. He focuses on the scientific side. It's very different than what would happen with Bruce. And he's letting them figure out quickly what he already discovered very early on, that they're being framed and it's a frame job. And I like the three of them trying to figure out the right way to handle this situation, which this certainly is not the way that our Trinity would handle it, because they were throwing some pretty extreme things out there.
Yeah.
I really liked how that played out. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Michael C. Hall did a great voice for that coldness, for that, for that presentation. He's got a very, just the way it's an even keel, solid voice, and just that he was the right match for that.
I would be curious to know what kind of direction they were given, as far as playing out their character, because they're very consistent. I like that they had some freedom. And whether it was, the script driven or however, to let these characters develop their own personality. Like, they're clearly those archetypes, as far as what we normally think of power wise. But, Batman's a vampire. I mean, that's a pretty huge thing. And, coming from the Kirk Langstrom background, Becca is a new god. And we've got Superman, who is not, not really even, he's half of the same guy. I would guess you would say half the same genes.
And, it's interesting because Batman does have the scientific background, but he doesn't have the gadgets that our Batman has. He does rely on the physical strength and the physical superhuman speed that he has because he's this vampire type, of character. So another neat little twist on that character. He's not throwing the batarangs and being the man who's prepared for everything. He is just really quick, really fast, and pretty nasty.
Yeah, and that really grew on me as this was going on. The historical picture, when it shows all the scientists, including him there, and that's how we start to get Batman's backstory, I thought was really great. Because he saw Will Magnus's name on Project Fairplay when he saw all that data. Yeah. And I like that there was that, like, right from there, that was like this beginning of this sense of betrayal. I didn't notice it the first time through that way, because I still was trying to wrap my head around it, but watching this through, knowing where it's going to lead, is very different. And I actually really like how smart this film was, because there are certain clues that are there all along. Even in the early relationship with Magnus and Kirk, how there's that rivalry over Tina.
Yeah.
There's some really big clues there is what's really going on here. But the clues don't really play out well unless you know what happens.
Yeah. And I like when we eventually get where Kirk, first injects himself, and Magnus has that little spat of jealousy. I wonder if you'd take care of me that well if I was sick. Please, not now, not again, or let's not go through this again. And you see, they've had a lengthy arguments, multiple discussions about her, affection and feelings. And again, that was something that was really cool. To show, again, great little, foreboding and just, little clues as to what actually happened. And something I missed, I didn't really realize the significance of the scene when you're first watching it. The second time through, when you know exactly what happens to the real Tina, what happens with Kirk and everything. And it is a really telling part of the story.
I've been twice in my life in situations where there was that girl, You know, and no fault of her or anything like that, where there was that jealousy or rivalry and unintentional, but it happens. I think it'll happen in the best of friends when you have feelings for the same person. And I loved how that played out in this. It was written very, very smart.
Oh, God, yeah. And you feel bad for Kirk just because, yeah, you always feel bad for the guy who loses.
Yeah.
You know, especially late, you know, because throughout this, you know,
who won though? Because I'm not convinced anybody won.
True. Yeah.
Because with where this ultimately goes, Magnus never really won, and that's very difficult as well. Because Tina really loved Kirk, or at least couldn't let go of her feelings for Kirk. So there was always a love triangle there. The love triangle never went away, and Magnus could never deal with that, knowing that he was never the one.
See, I don't know. Here, part of me does wonder if Magnus, how much of it was that Tina was really in love with Kirk, or how much of it was Magnus's jealousy.
I think a little bit of A and B.
Wonder.
I think a little bit of A and B. I think Magnus thought that their relationship was stronger than it was. Here's the thing. If you're in a relationship with somebody and it's really rock solid and everything's equal, that eventually plays itself out, and you get a confidence in what's going on there. That never plays out between them. She clearly, at least in the way this is written and played out, she clearly favors Kirk in certain key situations. Like, there's body language where Magnus is kind of sitting over in the corner, like when Kirk's recovering. She's totally doting over him by the bed. You never see her go over and give encouragement or affection to Magnus. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's never that part where...
See, I see what you're saying, and I agree there is, but I really think there's not love, but there's that friendship love. You know, I think
between who and who?
Between Tina and Kirk. I don't think she has that type of deep love for him. I think it's that friendship love that she has. She loves him, but not the romantic love.
And do you think that she has a stronger feeling than for Kirk? I mean, for Will Magnus.
I think she actually was romantically in love with Will.
Based
but then
on what?
As the stuff with Kirk happened, she was concerned for her friend. And Will, I think his classic, you know, every villain has that classic flaw. His is, you know, the jealousy. His is the insecurity in accepting that this woman actually really loves him, not his friend.
Let me ask you a question. Let's go another end. Kirk returns her interest, which he clearly isn't. And that could be circumstance. Do you think she would have stayed with Magnus or Kirk if she was faced with the decision of having to choose one or the other?
See, I think she would have gone with Magnus.
I disagree.
If Kirk never got sick, if everything went normal, and the three of them were just regular, everyday persons, I think she would have, you know, the reason... Yeah, if Kirk had said, "Hey, I'm in love with you," she was like, "Hey, come on, you know I'm with Will. You're my friend." I think she would have given him the "I think of you as a brother" line.
Based
I think
on
she
what,
really
though?
would have given him "I think of you as a brother."
Can you name one scene in this film where you felt like she was in love with Magnus?
I can't. Okay, here's the thing. I can't name a scene where it's just, you know, I've been Kirk. You know, so I've been the guy who's been, you know, and so I that's part of the reason why I put myself in his shoes and why I see that, and that's why I think that.
Here's the scenario I see playing out with at least how this thing, and it's funny. I actually really love how well this relationship was written. I think she really had a thing for Kirk, and I think Kirk had a thing for her. I think if everything had been equal, here's one of two things would have happened. She would have either wound up with Kirk, or ultimately her and Magnus would have been over because of the fact that, for whatever reason, that just destroyed all of their friendships. You know, if that makes any sense at all. This was never destined to end well for Will Magnus.
No. Yeah, we completely agree on that part. And my opinions, they aren't based on anything told in the story. It's just, again, the way I'm connecting with the characters. You know, I see myself more as Kirk than of Will. In, you know, with my situation, where I was the guy who was in love and who she clearly gave me the "Hey, I think of you as a brother" line, which absolutely stinks when you actually.
I've been there before too.
So that's where my whole motivation is coming from. This now, I would love to think that Kirk would have actually won, and everything would have been great. But again, I am part of a romantic pessimist, so I don't see that. But again, classic, wonderful story in that there's so many things we're thinking off page, we're thinking off script, we're thinking just stuff that never had any supporting documents in the movie. We feel so comfortably with these characters, we can say, "I think blank."
I've been on all sides of this. No, I really have. I've been Kirk, where I've had the "let's just be friends" kind of thing. I've been on the other side, where I've been, the one who quote unquote won, which that has its own problems, as far as what it does for friendships and things like that. That's not enviable either. And then 'cause it's never clean. I've been the jealous guy. I've done that part. I mean, I think we've all, a lifetime, we all go through different phases, and fortunately we grow out of them. It was interesting watching this because I connected with how well written the relationships really were. That was probably one of my favorite bits in this, was that relationship, because I could go through my life history. I'm like, I've been in every one of those situations. None of them were good. It's just that none of those situations work out well, and they had all of them in one. And it was destined not to work out.
It's a Kobayashi Maru, dude.
It really is. It really is.
It's the no-win scenario.
Yeah, because ultimately the elements of that, the pieces that wind up broken in that, they wind up having an effect no matter how good you are about it. I actually admire people who can get through all that and maintain the friendships. It's very hard to do. I like when Lois Lane gets to see the ship for the first time, and Superman's trying to work with her to kind of bring to light what's really going on here, because he needs to go into his own history and see what's going on and try to really resolve this particular issue. We learn that Superman doesn't know a whole lot about his past and his upbringing, and I'm glad he doesn't, because it makes more. That was a bit when I saw that, I'm like, well, he's not influenced by his father because he doesn't know who his father was. So it's not like he's had tons of speeches and things to see from Zod. And later on, we find out that information was deliberately kept from him. Like, he sees his dad, but he's crafted his own story about his dad, kind of like you're doing with the relationship. I'm so totally teasing.
Well, and I really dig. I also like you. I like the.
And I am teasing. I apologize.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know, dude. Yeah. With when Superman starts bringing in Lois, and he actually does shows up at the Daily Planet or the news studio the TV studio where she's at, and brings her in. That to me was a level of strategery that I would expect from the son of Zod.
Yeah, and you know what? With his intelligence, he probably would think strategery is the word.
And we saw how well it worked, though.
He's not the son. He's not the son of. He's not the son of Jor-El
at all. She completely saw through the plan. Mm-hmm. So strategery, I think, isn't actually appropriate word for that level.
Lois Lane is extremely well written in this.
Yeah.
Like, every scene with her is value. I love her strength. I love her intelligence, but I love the fact that she feels like a reporter, an investigative reporter, but also a morally driven reporter who wants to report real news and real facts. And it's something that I think we don't see as much in journalism these days. But when we see it, they're your special cases, your unique and interesting ones. And I really enjoyed the portrayal of her in this, because it harkens back to everything growing up I've always loved about the character Lois Lane when she's written well.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny because as different as all these characters are, Lois is still that constant. Yeah, she's not, friends and trusting of Superman, but this Superman has given her reason not to. I can imagine that when he first came on scene, she probably was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And then second, she started seeing the killing, started seeing the level of violence, started seeing what he was doing. Like, whoa, we got a problem here. Because that was always the strength of Superman, that this guy was coming in and helping everybody, and what was his MO? And she was one of the first people to really say, no, we can trust this guy. Look at what he's done. Look at where he's come from and just what he's doing. So in this universe, she's saying the exact same thing. let's look at what he's done. We got to be cautious on this. And then as caution, build over years, because it's been 10 years since they've really been operational. So she's had that time. So we still have that same Lois Lane, but we have this reaction to her. And by the end of the movie, that character has changed because she started seeing change in the Justice League. And again, that's Lois Lane. She's going to take all the information, evaluate it, and present it.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty important key in this one. Amanda Waller being the president. What did you think about that?
Come on, that was awesome. The Wall is president. When they first said the lady, when they first started mentioning everything, and started mentioning a female, because that very first raid, talks about Trevor says she's not going to be happy. Doesn't say the name. The first name that popped in my head was Amanda Waller. Now, I wasn't thinking she was president. I was just thinking she was the head of the organization. But whenever you mention a powerful, dominant female like that in the DC universe, first name that always pops in my head is Amanda Waller. So with her as the president, that works great for me.
Magnus and Batman, when he comes up on the scene, and Batman overhears the debate between Magnus and the other scientists about what's going on in the situation, how they're in danger, and how this is the reason why they had Project Fairplay and all that type of thing. Batman having the debate with Will Magnus here, I bought into that hook, line, and sinker too. Magnus sold me on this.
Once again, yeah, great swerves and great usage of it, but it did have you wondering with Fairplay, what exactly is the complete nature of it? Why was it created? Well, we kind of know why it was created, but it was still that mystery of what is fair play, what is going to happen.
Yeah, and that's kind of a key to me. I loved Tin. I liked Tin looked like Twiggy from Buck Rogers. Yeah. And I liked that kind of take on him being like what I loved about it was he was this smaller kind of companion robot where, he was more like a pet. Like Sony did like this Aibo, like pet dog type of thing.
Yeah. And
I was kind of looking at that with Tin. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's cute little. I so loved later on when Tin had weapons to see that play out and to find out that Tin was in league with his evil creator.
He was able to throw down, and I was happy to see that. Again, like you, this was a great crafting of the story, where we have that cute little Tin that we're like, oh, Tin, yay, kind of, and just not completely thinking, again, it still had me thinking, I didn't even think of the other Metal Men. I was thinking they were going to show up, to save the day or something like that, or Will was going to, join in the fight with his buddy and fight side by side with him and his Metal Men, and I completely was not thinking he was the main bad guy, and it was some neat stuff, especially you get that great scene when all those scientists were together and you can start picking out people like, hey, that's the female Dr. Light. Hey, that's, John Henry. Hey, there's Terry Holt. There's Savannah, picking the different scientists, who are making their appearance. I was like, oh, that is cool.
Becca versus Steve Trevor was great. And what I loved about that, we should talk about, as we're talking about that fight, we should take a look too at, as they were fighting each other, Becca really has, in her costume design, the way she carries herself, she has a Jack Kirby style to her. I mean, the costuming, the art style of her face, body, everything. It's very out of the new God stuff, the fourth world stuff with Jack Kirby. And I really enjoyed that part of her, that it embraced its source material, but yet still felt very much like, okay, this is this world's Wonder Woman, and I get why.
Yeah, and I didn't know she was a new god until they told her origin.
Well, this is the one, Becca is.
No.
You read Sinestro.
Oh, my God. Oh, duh.
Yeah. She in the current DC universe, she's one of the members of the Sinestro Corps.
Oh, my God, I'm an idiot. It didn't even dawn on me.
So I love seeing her in this role because she's a character we're currently reading, and I'm loving her portrayal in Sinestro right now.
Oh, wow. I didn't even even after knowing she's a new god, I just thought, oh, okay, they created a new god character. I thought she was just a brand new character. It didn't even dawn on me that she was that character. That is awesome. That once again, I'm like, man.
Now, here's the thing. In this world, High Father's dark side, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
as far as dark side.
Yeah. Whereas dark side's being more noble.
Yeah, it is. Again, that was a nice little swerve when they first started the wedding, I'm like, okay, because when they first showed that wedding, I was thinking Darkseid was going to be double cross Highfather, and that's how she was going to flee. Even up until the point when when Orion gives her the sword and all that stuff, I'm thinking, okay, after the wedding, Darkseid betrays, kills, she jumps out, and that's how she leaves. I completely was not thinking that Highfather was going to do the turn. So once again, another beautiful twist, beautiful turn, swerve I didn't see coming, and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was really a unique take. I loved that Orion, one of the things in Jack Kirby's Fourth World when he did Orion had a apocalypse face and a face that he did when he was in front of humans that was more friendly. This is his apocalypse face that we see here, with the bushier eyebrows. He looks more like his father. And I liked it because there would be no reason for him to have a different sort of face here because his relationship with Dad's good.
Yeah, that was, again, with the Orion character, I thought that was a really neat way to present him and just everything, because I'm not used to the that kinder, gentler side of him. So when we saw that, again, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to die protecting Becca. He's going to die fighting Darkseid. Darkseid's going to sweep everything, and that's why she leaves. And I had my mindset that he was going to die a noble death. So I wasn't surprised by his death, but I was surprised by Darkseid's.
I'm laughing at Aladdin and Becca's are flying along. Like I don't call him Aladdin because I'm just like a whole new world. As the two of them are flying along into that diamond area or whatever with the jewels, and he gives her the sword. That's where it starts to take a turn.
Yes. And I think that's the first time you've ever actually sung on this podcast.
No, it's been before, and it's just as bad as it was then. So nobody get used to it. But in this, as I'm watching it, I'm like laughing at it because I'm like, this really is a very twisted version of Aladdin right now.
Yes,
I loved that the sword had a mother box in it, and that it was his way of protecting her. That sequence showed his nobility. Like, this is the noble son of Darkseid. And it really began to show me the unique differences of this world. Who was a hero in one place might be a villain in this. Who was a villain in this, or, in our world, might be a hero in this. And they played that out really, really well. This whole wedding sequence with Granny Goodness, like, doing the officiating, who had any idea that, like, she was actually kind of I guess I'm taking it Darkseid and his whole crew are good guys in this. Or as good as they get.
I think they were as good as they get.
Because look at Darkseid's smiling during the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, that was trying to figure that stuff out. Now, again, because up until that point, I'm thinking he's going to double cross. So he's smiling, being friendly to, get everyone to drop their guard, and then he's going to attack. And that's, but he was actually the good guy-esque, of the two.
Yeah, I guess we didn't see enough of him to actually know that part of it. But certainly when we got, Light Ray and then Scott Free and Barda killing Darkseid and his crew, there's not a whole lot of nobility going on there.
Oh, no, they were double-crossing, stabbing in the back. That was like a wedding from Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
People were dying left and right, and it was not honorable deaths. It was sneak attacks, and Granny gets done by the blaster right underneath the chin. I was like, wow, this was a bam, just complete slaughter of them. And it was, again, it was a kind of it was bad to see such, all the people dying, but I really did like how they really showed just the nastiness of it. And again, you see where Becca's coming from. You see what she dealt with and how she hated and just, was just, how that just disturbed her so much. So you can kind of understand this Wonder Woman in this world came from that.
Do you think this Highfather would have ever spared Orion?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, I think he would have died no matter what. I mean, it may not have been in that moment, but at some point in time, we would have taken him out because he couldn't trust him, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the blood of Darkseid. Had to be extinct.
So it was interesting. And Becca's escape was great because we knew where that was all coming. I really liked this character. I've got to say, the more I watched of this world, the more I'd love to see a follow-up. Like, I would love to see where these characters go after all this because their backstories I thought were really well developed. It was really interesting to see them team up together, and I think there's more story to be told with them. I wouldn't mind seeing the formation of a more expanded Justice League, but even if they kept it just this Trinity, they're interesting enough that I would watch another one in an instant with them to see more and learn more about them. And you're right, in certain cases, there is more to learn about the backstory of these characters that we haven't yet that leaves storytelling opportunity.
Oh, God, yeah. And they definitely have laid the groundwork for the second story, especially you think about how this ends and just wherever all the characters are at the end of the movie, that we could really expand. We can get an expanded Justice League. They never said anything about Bruce Wayne. Right. That was what I kept looking for and seeing any sign of Bruce Wayne. So that's a character they could bring into the mix as to what happened to him and his family and how they change and how different they are in this universe. Same thing with the Amazons. We don't know anything about Diana from Themyscira. She's not around. Maybe she'll make an appearance. There's so much they can do with the second movie on this. Plus just bring back the New Gods, a war against the New Gods.
Sir Thomas of Cleveland.
Yes, Sir Thomas of Cleveland.
Yeah. See Nemesis in this thing. I really loved when the scientists gathered together and recognized, hey, we're being picked off one by one. We kind of need to do something about this or take a stand. Savannah being one of the lead people speaking on that one. It is interesting when you see in this world the scientists together. I don't know. Some of them would have, I think, openly sided with Will Magnus and what he was trying to do.
Actually, probably. You think about just Savannah, what we know about him, I think he would have. But again, whenever you get a team of bad guys, there's always double cross and betrayal. Right. Especially because Magnus was one of those where he wasn't doing this to conquer the world. He was doing it to save the world. He was going to save us. He was going to make everybody on the even keel and even playing field and not have, this is going to end war, violence, everything. He kind of had that Luther mindset
he killed his love.
Well, by accident. Come on, that was an accident.
We got to work on your definition of accident.
But again, everybody who had who killed and did these horrific things, they always have those same kind of, Zod had that, Will had that. They're just like, it was an accident. Come on.
I slipped, I fell.
Yeah. I didn't mean to kill her. I just hit her because she was annoying me with saying, you gotta save, you gotta save Kirk. You gotta save Kurt. I just lost it.
Too funny. Speaking of extreme prejudice, these robots come in and kill with extreme prejudice.
Oh,
and
boy.
Batman, with as fast as he is, can't keep up with them. He's fighting them and holding his own, but he can't keep up with the sheer number of them.
Yeah, and just the way that played out, because those robots were doing nice slaughter, and it was just, again, we saw them earlier just how efficient they are with the killing, and in this fight sequence, I'm wondering, okay, are any of them going to survive? And then you get to the point where you see Tina get fried, Tina gets stabbed, and you're like, oh my god, completely just like, whoa, reaction. Then of course Will gets blasted with the heat vision, and he's just barely alive, and I was like, completely just pulling me in, because I did not see that as a complete setup. I didn't see anything, and it wasn't even until that fight sequence when Diana shows up that I realized that these were actually robots. I always thought they were, again, I was thinking this was the Justice League in those costumes. And this sequence has let me know, okay, it's not the Justice League. This is a setup going on. And so then I really started looking at it differently, but I never thought Will was involved with this.
Now, would you do what Will did? Will got himself almost burned alive, knowing that the nanites could heal him. But would you take that chance?
Oh, God, no. I'm a wimp.
Well, to your point, the amount of pain he'd be in.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that I would have used the Tina being run through and had Tina barely alive. But again, tricking, Superman into thinking that it's, that Tina's alive would be the difficult part for them. So, because when you see this whole thing, you see her die, and she eventually rises up and goes back and shows up the Justice League. I was thinking when I first watched this, I was thinking it would have been better to have Tina actually be the one, and then Will would have been by Tina's side, and that's how he would have gotten into the Tower of Justice, not him being fried. That's how I because again when I watched the story, I was thinking how would I do it differently, but. Again, it does this way really played into Will's ego, his arrogance, just his own confidence, and just his nature that it fit that he would actually risk this, that he would know my robot. I created this robot. It's in such control. It'll be able to scorch my body and have me barely alive because I'm that good in design, and I can take the pain because I'm that cool.
Speaking of arrogance. Luthor and Superman meet up, and I mean, both of them fall into the arrogant category. What did you think of Superman's outfit?
Oh, I liked it. Again, it showed the practical side of it. There's no big. He didn't need to be colorful. Part of the thing with the color was all, and the S on the chest was his family crest. Well, this Superman doesn't have that. He didn't need to have the color to have everyone protect and think, warm, comforting thoughts. He could wear, the coat and the black, the blackish, bluish, dark outfit, because he's more efficient. It's more about the, what he's doing, not the appearance and keeping people at ease.
Did they ever tell us what happened to Luthor that he got in the chair, or is that just an age thing?
I think it was a degenerative thing, something going on with him, because you see at the very beginning he's walking with the cane. And then as goes on, he is getting older, but I think there's something, he's physically breaking down. There's something wrong with him, some type of disease. That's how I read it or watched it.
It's interesting how he just got so into his science that he started to become almost bored with our world because there was less and less to explore, and he was looking elsewhere for things to see that are new so he could gain more knowledge. And that was more important to him than his initial worries about Superman.
Yeah, this was the pure scientist Lex. Where this wasn't any of the evil supervillain. This was Lex Luthor, the pure scientist. It's the pursuit of knowledge. It's kind of like Cronus, how he was always looking for the origin of time. Well,
Krona?
This Luthor is searching. What?
Krona?
Cronus, Cronut. It's all the same,
Cronut. New to Green Lantern, the Cronut. It's not just for breakfast anymore.
Exactly. But it's that pure pursuit of knowledge. And I thought that was a neat twist, again, with this Luthor, that, because throughout we get all these appearances of him. He's always in the academia. He's always in the scientific. He's always in, with the government type of style. It's not the mega millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire Lex Luthor. It's the scientist. And I thought I liked that. Again, really cool quality to have in this character.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. He was very smart. And the debate between the two of them comes from a very, very different lens. And he knows things about Superman that Superman doesn't know, about his backstory and who he came from genetically. And that scares him just as much as the power does.
Again, just Luthor thinking, because he knew he was worried that if, Superman knew where he came from, maybe he would emulate his father. And I thought that, the Lex Luthor, to me, the best written Lex Luthors aren't just, the evil bad guy. They're the guy who's trying to protect humanity, who doesn't want humanity dependent on this alien, who wants humanity dependent on itself and, rise up type of, rise up, hoorah, good, go humans. And this Luthor really kind of seemed like that. And he even seemed more like it than we've seen in the comic book where, especially because he's keeping this information. He was the one who's trying to stop the sanction of the Justice League, who's trying to, prevent their rise to power and, out of fear of what they would become. And I liked seeing this side of Luthor.
I did too. I think that it kind of took the best elements of certain characters and portrayed them in a different way. That part was really important to me. It was nice to see these characters really well thought out and developed and have personalities. Like, I feel like not only do I know our main characters, I know the supporting cast really well. Steve Trevor, I think we got to know real well. Lex Luthor, Lois Lane. These are characters that I really enjoyed getting to know here, and really are close to what we've always known about them as characters. They're only changed by the world they're a part of. What about Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah, they tattooed him up a little bit. Again, modernize him, or just this version of him. He's not Superman's best friend. He again hits the. I like when people write Olsen as a little bit on the edge, because a lot of the photojournalists are like that. They are a little bit extreme. They're going toward it's the pursuit of the picture. They got to go, dive headfirst in the story. Yeah, there's massive danger around, but you got to get that one shot. Can you keep calm? Can you take the picture? And I like seeing that kind of little bit edge to them.
I did too. When the Army comes up with Project Fairplay and all the plans to attack, the three of them analyzing the situation again, I wanted to see this battle. I liked that the battle felt dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that scientists had made this plan. They knew what they were doing. There was this sense of danger. And at this point, I was really highly invested in these three. They aren't like their hoorah rally behind heroes, but they were interesting characters. Yeah. That was the distinction here. Like, I don't look at any of these three really as a hero, but I do look at them as characters that I would follow. Like, if they started releasing these quarterly with these characters and expanded their universe, kept going on with them, I would be interested in following them right now. I care enough at this point that I would follow them into further volumes. Kind of like those Earth 1 graphic novels that I like so well. I look at this the same way. Like, I am invested in these guys. I want to see more.
Oh, big time, big time. And it really, within this fight sequence, that was kind of, it's funny because how much, what they really unleash on the people. But I saw this, I stopped seeing them as the evil Justice League by now. I saw them as a different version of the Justice League. Saw them as this Elseworld Justice League where, so when this fight started coming, like, oh, this is going to be a cool fight sequence. Just because knowing, they can hurt Superman, knowing they could kill Superman. I wanted to see this fight. I want to see how they played it out and how they actually, would throw down. And again, even up to this point, I still didn't see Will Magnus as the bad guy. It wasn't until we actually see Tina, upright, and she becomes Platinum that everything dawned on me. I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot for completely missing that. I was the whole time, I didn't know who the bad guy was going to be, what was going to happen, how this was going to play out. But I was so caught up in the story and the action going on outside that completely caught me off guard with the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, that part really stands out for me. That part of it was really great. I like that Steve Trevor was almost torn in that fight. Was trying to talk him down, but also recognizing, hey, we got to do what we got to do at this point, and sticking to orders. He was given orders. Got to take Superman down at this point, and he doesn't have the relationship with Superman. His relationship was with Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Well, it's again. Even Lex said, Project Fairplay is out to stop them. But in reality, it's only out to stop Superman. The Fairplay protocols were really developed to take out Superman, even though they did have a Wonder Woman protocol in play. And I like the fact that they had that Wonder Woman protocol in play, but the main focus was Superman.
As I'm looking through the Superman sequence, one of my favorite bits there was... You're talking about the animation of the fight sequence where you start to feel that they're not the bad guys. Oh my gosh, did they do a great Wonder Woman in that?
Yeah.
She, honestly, from a combat standpoint, I think she's got a slight edge on Batman. And I thought the Batman was really cool because of the ninja type stuff that you were talking about. He was a vampire and they were playing around the vampire powers. And as cool as I think that is, I think when Wonder Woman's rushing to Superman's defense and really putting herself in the line of fire, I thought that was really cool because it shows that there's a strong bond between these three. I would love to see an origin of how they got together.
Yes.
The whole team of three. That's a story I want to see told on screen with these actors because I want to see it brought to life with emotion. I don't want to just see that on paper. I want to see that in this medium just because this comes to life in this medium. I love the shorts that go along with it. There were some comics that go along with it really good, but I really would love to see another film that expands on some of their backstory.
Yeah, and in that fight sequence, I really liked, again, when they're using the helicopters against each other.
Yeah.
Because I know she did it at least once, and I think Superman did it as well, where as the helicopters shooting, they spin it and it shoots one of its own people. She did it in that opening fight sequence with people with machine guns. I really like, again, it's that improvise, adapt, and overcome fight style. And when she flies in for the save, on Superman, and she's just sitting there blocking as much shots as you can, but still some are getting through. She's getting hit, Superman's getting hit. That for me was a really cool fight sequence because it wasn't a perfect save, but it was enough to kind of buy them some time, give him a chance to recoup, and even to the point when she's like, okay, we got to get out of here now, and she goes to pop her mother box, and that's when we see the Wonder Woman protocol that negates the mother box. I thought that was again, it was a really neat sequence showing that it wasn't just about anti-Superman, there had to be a defense against her.
Magnus's whole plan is so diabolical and evil. He's twisted his own mind to think that this is really going to make a better world, when in the end it basically takes away all freedom, all unique thought, because he's basically trying to make them one. I don't know if hive mind's the right word, but one-minded. Everyone thinks and feels and reacts the same way. There's no differences that could possibly get in the way or cause conflict. Basically, the one hive mind goes to his thought process.
Yeah, which wouldn't do too well because he's a nut jobby. So, it's to say you have one hive mind, would lead to peace. People could argue yes or no, but which mind is going to be, the center? Which mind is going to be that focus? What's going to be, the foundation? And you can't. That's part of I think that's part of our charm as people, that we have these diversities, we have these differences, and we do have to learn how to deal with each other. We do have to, to be better people towards each other. But the fact that we have this difference, I think, is kind of a neat thing. And to have him throw that out there, it was just a great villain. That I'm going to, his main goal was world peace. It wasn't to conquer the world; it was a world peace. But it was world peace his way, and I thought it was an awesome villain.
The reveal that Lex Luthor was alive was awesome. Yeah. When he popped in, I wasn't surprised to see him. I thought he was dead and gone. I really did. But when he came in, it was one of those cool things where it's like, wow, that's neat to see him. You know what I didn't just notice now? Luthor's chair is kind of like the Mobius chair. Yeah, with the way that's been reconstructed, and I love that.
By the end of the movie, he really modifies it so it looks a little bit more. I liked it because you see the chair evolving throughout the movie. You see his kind of like his outfit and his appearance evolving throughout it as to kind of fit that. That was a neat little trick. And for me, I never once thought Luthor was dead. Even when I saw his satellite explode, I'm like, oh, he's fine. He's Lex Luthor. I didn't know how he got out of it, but I knew he wasn't dead just because, come on, it's Luthor.
I guess I was thinking because all the other scientists died, that was the premise of this, was that, they all would die, except for Magnus. But I love that Luthor didn't, and I don't really have a lot to dispute you feeling that way, because there really is no reason to dispute that. But I really got swerved with that one. I love when Superman, kind of, after Luthor validates the fact that they are the ones that were wrong, Superman flies up into the sky, charges up, and comes crashing down to try and break into his own building.
Again, really cool moments of showing the turn of the characters, and having Lex be the one to come in and save the day for Superman, having Superman saying, "Hey, we got to stop this guy," and it wasn't just about protecting himself. He was fighting to protect humanity. And I love the moment where he said, I watched a madman destroy a world. I'm not going to let another one destroy this one. That was his father he was talking about. Before, at the beginning of the movie, he crafted this story about how, had people listened to him, maybe they would have survived. And he had this this childhood fantasy about his biological father being this great man, and now he knows the biological father's a madman. So I'm going to do what's right. And he actually, you kind of see the birth of the hero in in these moments, and I like that. I was kind of a cool, just fly up, power dive, punching, and then inside with Kirk, never give up, never surrender. He keeps fighting.
Now, when you say you see it as the birth of the hero, do you think they're going to be drastically different after all this?
I don't think drastically, but there is going to be a change, because you think about the ending.
Sure.
When he and Kirk are talking, and they're saying, "Hey, maybe we need to, shake things up. Well, no more killing."
Well, hang on though. Remember Kirk's response to that, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Just give it some thought. But it's Superman is initiating this concept, initiating this idea, and I think we're going to see it change and be more. They're going to be more of the human, more of the hero, less of the Justice SWAT team.
I liked Becca versus Platinum, seeing Will Magnus versus Batman. Because I totally saw at that point. I saw after Magnus was injected, I totally saw that fight coming between the two of them. That he basically improved upon the tech that he got from Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Completely saw that fight sequence going. I liked the three robots merging to fight Superman. That was, again, really cool. Boom, 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 jumping from all the different fight sequences. But they never lost that Kirk and Will story that was going on. The characters that I was so attached to so much. Like, these two are two best buddies and great friends, and I had this whole story idea in my head that Will was going to bring the Metal Men to save the day, and yada yada. Well, now it's a completely different story, and within a span of seconds, I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. But I still had that same connection between the two of them. They never lost that part of the story, and everything. It was one of those things where everything made sense. You're like, oh, okay, I see exactly where they're crafting this, and it just fits so wonderfully that I was like, this is a really cool story.
The fight sequence where they're fighting in the lava, I thought was really terrific. There's so much of this that, like, as I'm watching it through, I just am marveling at the choreography in this. Like, I've always loved hand-drawn animation, and I don't know what the technical aspect of this looks like, how much of this is done digitally now and how much of it's done through hand. But as a concept, I've always loved what you can do with motion and the sense of movement, similar to what I've always loved about the comic book page with animation. I'm a huge Disney and classic Warner Brothers fan. I've always liked just the sense of quality to those kind of animated experiences. And this is what I love about this animation right here. It's certain things that you really couldn't do with real humans on screen. You wouldn't be able to achieve the kind of, I guess, fidelity and security and consistency with humans in this. It would be very hard to do that. This does it so well in the fight sequences and builds a sense of drama. What a dramatic piece when he's fighting Magnus and winds up, having to bluff him. He thinks he's up high. He's actually down low, comes in, takes Magnus down, and the fight continues. Just really great stuff.
Yeah, and I really digged the Wonder Woman Tina fight.
Yep.
That, again, you see her, Becca is just that hardened warrior, but it's not just slash and kill and punch and kick. There is a level of strategy with her that she is able to set her up, runs the sword through, hits her with the mother box, dumps her in the sun. Once again, outstanding and worthy of a double strategy in one episode.
Double strategy in one episode. Yeah. And you consider that a compliment, do you?
I consider that a high compliment.
Oh, when Will Magnus is down and out and Batman decides not to bite him. I like that he has a code. I mean, it's certainly not a code by like traditional standards, but I do like that he looks at him and goes, you know what? I am better than this. Everything that he was saying, I'm not going to validate.
Once again, it's the birth of the hero. We saw Superman's birth of his hero moment when he's, sacrificing and doing everything he can to get in, and just how the level of combat he had to do with the robots. This was his birth of his hero, where he's like, I'm not going to kill this evil person, because Will now fit the category of it's safe to kill this guy because he's a bad guy. He's evil. but we're seeing just again that level of he's not going to. And no, I'm not going to say it again. We're seeing that level of just that hero birth and just that, that growth and awareness in him that, maybe he's not consciously saying I got to do things differently, but there is a difference to him now.
At the end of the fight sequence, we see Lois Lane kind of dealing with the aftermath of it. And I liked the epilogue of this. I wanted to see what was going to come of these characters afterwards. I loved Batman closely analyzing it, and trying to think about how, like Superman, where do they fit in from here? Because this is yet another circumstance where the public view of them is going to be affected by this. And they're used to having a pretty negative and not caring about it public view.
Yeah.
The public policy on them is not thumbs up. People are scared of them. And they're really like a police force that Big Brother is watching kind of thing, where people view them more that way than they do as helpful.
Yeah. And again, it's just the evolution of where this can go. Mm-hmm. We can see a Justice League coming out of this. We can see other people stepping up and being heroes, and just the whole story of Becca going back to her people with Luthor.
Yeah,
I want to see that. I want to see the battle with the New Gods. Next movie, this version, Justice League battle with the New Gods. I want to see these guys throw down. I want to see Becca call for backup and have Superman and Batman, but also some extras show up with them. Oh yeah, we built the team a little bit since you were last around us. I'd like to see that kind of stuff happen, and actually just where it can go. There's so much more they could do with these characters that, again, they laid such a great foundation, a great groundwork that we have a lot of room to go with this.
I want to see Becca tell you we don't need no backup.
Backup? We don't need no stinking backup. Mm-hmm.
I did like that there was that sense of her, I left so much undone when I left, and I need to go back and make this right and sort this one out. I too, with you, I want to see a sequel to follow up and see their adventures. And I don't care if it's divided, where like Becca's off doing something with Luthor, and we see these two, Batman and Superman, teaming up together to kind of develop a sense of where they're going to go in the future as they develop a new team. I don't care either way on that one. There's something unique to this universe in that film. It is bittersweet at the end when you see Will Magnus, Kirk, and Tina. Yeah. In that picture, you do see Tina clearly hugging Will like they're together as a couple and as a thing.
Yeah, see, I think...
I do see it in that picture. I do, yeah. Where I'm like, there's a little bit more to your point. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know Richard Chamberlain was High Father.
I didn't know that either. Holy crud.
They really had like an incredible cast on this one. I don't know how they pulled that one together, but everyone was really well done.
Yeah, this was another one of those really great. As I said, I absolutely love Michael C. Hall. As Batman, he fit. His voice fits so well, and I can't knock. Obviously can't knock Superman and Wonder Woman either. They were just. I don't know how they actually where they get them, and just the level of planning and just the level of care and caution they put in these animated films are just absolutely wonderful. It's something I've always, it's something we both gush about whenever these things come out, whether I know anything that what's going to happen or whether it's a complete surprise to me because I've, haven't been paying attention to the spoilers and the news clips on them. Every time I get one, every time I watch one, I'm like, man, this is cool. This is neat. And to your point that you said earlier, this story is told really well in this format.
Yeah.
It would be neat to read a comic on them, but there is something about just that visual flow that you get from the animated comics and the animated stories.
Did you get the tie-in comics to this?
Yeah, I did. I waited until watching the movie and our discussion. I haven't read them yet, so they're sitting back. I'm gonna read them now that we've had our discussion. I didn't know what those would do, if they would change anything or influence any information. I wanted to go solely based on just the movie.
They're good. They're really good. I got them digitally, as they came out in their little digital chapters, and I quite like that. I'm glad they do that with the digitals, though. They give you the option to get the paper. I'm assuming you got the paper version?
Yeah, I got the paper.
Here's what I liked in the credits. I'm looking at it right now, and I actually paused it here. They had Amanda Waller, created by John Ostrander and John Byrne. Emil Hamilton, created by Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway. John Henry Irons, created by Louise Simonson and John Bogdanov. And Karen Beecher, created by Bob Rozakis and Jose Delbo. And apologies for any name butchery anywhere in this. Kirk Langstrom, created by Neil Adams. New Gods, created by Jack Kirby. Ray Palmer, created by Gardner Fox. Silas Stone, created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And in all those cases, I wanted to shout out the names just because it's really cool characters. I love that they do that they acknowledge the original creators. And that's why I said apologies for any name butchery. I'm really bad where, especially when I was younger, if I got my own impression of how the last name was pronounced, I have trouble letting it go. Which is something that you don't know a lot of times how to pronounce somebody's name, especially when I was younger as a kid. I didn't know, different backgrounds pronounce certain letters and certain letter combinations with a different sort of sound system. And it perfectly matches the background of the person, but I didn't know what those were. So I've come up with so many butchered comic creators' names, and I always liked learning more about the comic creators or following ones that were interesting. But I love that they do this in those kind of acknowledgments. Do you like that kind of stuff? To me, I think it's really neat now. I appreciate it more.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate it more now. And since we started doing the podcast, that's really where you kind of get it. And then just when I saw that, because like with you, I saw that with the was when I first watched the movie, I figured, okay, let's see if there's anything afterwards. So I just hit fast forward and kind of flew through everything. So the second time watching, I actually read the credits and I wanted to see the names. And I got to that section where they acknowledge all these created by section. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat that they're doing that now.
Now, let's just talk real quickly. We don't have to go through every element of them, but they had 3 Machinima presents Justice League Gods and Monsters short features that were put out, and they were about 5.5 minutes each. They had one focusing on each one of the characters. They had the Becca one, which was Big, that was called, where we got to meet for the first time Giganta, or this world's version of Giganta, I should say. We had Justice League Gods and Monsters Bomb, which was focused on Superman and Brainiac. I think, let's kind of jump back to those two real quick before we go on to the Batman one, because the Bomb one was moving to me, because our Superman would have handled this so differently. Brainiac is attacking the city, but it turns out Brainiac's a little kid, and he's this kid that, because of the nature of how he was created, can't control his powers. Because of that, he's almost begging for Superman to end it and to put a stop to him. And Superman knows what he has to do. And I like that he was genuinely moved afterwards. Like, he was a soldier, handled like a soldier like his father would. He doesn't know at this time that he is Zod's son, but handles it and takes the kid out. But it moved him, and it was tough for him to do that. To me, that says a lot about the character. And I really like that character mattered to me because he did that. That sequence showed a softer side to him that we didn't see much in the film. And I like that there is a morality to him, too. He's not just this cocky, confident super figure. There is a heart in there somewhere, and that shows something that came from the parents that raised him.
Yeah, he's heavy-handed, but he's heavy-handed because he has to be. And that was the thing that he threw out to Lois Lane when she was at when he was when he had her in the tower. He's saying, "Hey, I've seen this. I've seen the harsher side of people. I've raised by migrant workers. I know how tough the world can be." And so and we saw that with him and with Silas and. When Silas died, and when Silas and Victor died, it was we saw just there is that compassion there, and he lets it out at points in time. So that's kind of neat.
Now, the Justice League Chronicles Big Gods and Monsters, where we're doing that, I really liked seeing Steve Trevor and Becca's relationship further clarified, and showing a little history there. That's what I meant earlier about backstory. It's fun seeing them on a mission together, and seeing it, to me, that added more to what was going on between the two of them in the film, because we got to see, well, these two actually had a camaraderie and a relationship in different missions that they'd been on. And I'd like to actually see more of that fleshed out between them, because obviously that wasn't the only time, but it was great to see Cobra brought into this and see how these two handled Cobra together. I love when he was being all cocky saying he'll handle it. She stepped back and let him. I thought that was hysterical. It was really a great sequence of events. Cool. And you knew that she would save him at any point in time. She was waiting for him to say, I need you, help me. And I thought that was really fun. The last one was the Justice League Gods and Monsters, the Batman one, which is Twisted. There's no better word for that, because Harley Quinn was created from the Bruce Timm and Paul Dini Batman animated universe. But in this case, they really imagined this one as being kind of the Joker of this world. Oh my gosh, what she was doing. And she also was she's like part doll maker as well. Wow, was she pretty creepy in this one.
It's awesome. I actually didn't get to see the shorts. So because my DVD version didn't have the shorts on them. It was only on the Blu-ray version. I don't have a Blu-ray player yet.
I think if you look online for Machinama, I think those were presented online.
Yeah, I'll be able to find them, eventually. And it was one of those things where I kept saying, oh, yeah, I'll find them. And for whatever reason, I never actually got to watch them and all that. But, yeah.
Did you just get to see the Batman trailer?
Oh, yeah, I saw the Batman trailer.
So that's on the DVD?
Yes, that's on the DVD, but they did not have any of the other stuff.
Let's talk for just a couple minutes and we'll wrap up after this, the Batman Bad Blood trailer. I get excited. I'm glad all of these have the trailer for the next one, because I want to see that too, the next film. That part was really interesting for me because this is a story I've always loved. This is Prodigal come to life, or the Grant Morrison version. Batman's taken out of the game. And they do it in a way in the storyline where now Dick Grayson has to take on the mantle and has to deal with Damian. Dick Grayson becomes Batman and has to deal with Damian. But they throw a twist in there that Batwoman's also a part of this whole thing. It's a great way to bring Batwoman into the fold and a part of all this. I'm really excited to see her. And I think this is her first animated feature debut, at least in a pivotal role like this, I think.
I think so as well. I think this is the beginning. It's kind of like she took where Batgirl was in the regular Prodigal story, or the regular, or the version that we just saw with Tim with Dick as Batman. So we got Batwoman now in the mix within the team, and I like that, and she's a character that I think is awesome. I'm kind of curious to see where exactly her backstory, how they're going to tell it, how much of the Batwoman that we know. That I really dig that character, really dig her backstory, who she is, what she's about. I'm curious to see how much of that they're going to bring into this universe.
Right, I absolutely 100% agree with you. That's the part that I find very interesting, is when this new universe comes off. I really like that these storylines, when they jumped with this line into the New 52 versions. Yeah. Of these characters, there's a continuity that's developing here. Each film continues off of the last, and some time has passed, but there's the history of what you've seen in the previous films is continuing here, especially in the Batman movies and the Justice League ones too, when they've done them with the current continuity. I really like that they're crafting a really tight-knit, fun movie universe, because there's a lot of the stuff that we like about when Marvel's done in their main feature films, right? So I like seeing it here, and I like that I don't need to see this connected with what they're doing on screen with the live-action films. I like this continuity. I like following it this way. I'm glad that there's complete freedom to do what they're going to do in live action. I like that the TV shows have their own continuity. I'm actually fine with that. I don't need this all tie together. I like that Marvel does that with a lot of their stuff. I like that DC doesn't feel beholden to that, because, I don't know, I like that there's a different feel from both companies. I think they're both doing things very well right now. So as a comic fan and a comic geek, I'm enjoying all of the product out there. And I think what I don't ever want is for Marvel or DC's experiences to feel like a watered-down version of the other, if that's making any sense at all. I like that they're trying their own things. They've got their own plans in place, and they seem to be being more and more as time goes on, executed really well and delivering things that I'm finding is satisfying. So the competition, I think, is great because I think they're delivering their own unique products. I've always, at its best, I think when Marvel and DC worked as competitors, it's always been when you can distinguish unique differences between both companies. And I think as fans, it's great to be involved in both of their products, comics, film, television, whatever, when they are distinct, when they are different, and they're delivering those differences to a high pedigree. And we're seeing that here with these. These are extremely well done, and I've actually quite loved all of them. I think they get better as they go along, and it may be just because we're getting more of them, and I'm enjoying seeing them. But I don't know if you have that same feeling. Like this I thought was absolutely stellar.
I know, and it's funny. Every time we talk about what's your favorite one, it's always one I just saw.
Yeah.
Because each time they're kicking up the game, and then when I'll go back and I'll watch back stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was awesome. Oh, I got this, And there's that. This is what DC does really well with these stories. This is the animated side of this is absolutely just spot on, stellar. Again, you talk about just the connectability. As you were talking, I'm sitting there just nodding my head going, testify, man. I was completely we're completely in sync on this one because, each company needs to be their own. Each company needs to go their own path. I remember when Marvel first really started hitting with these stories that were connected and building and this and that, I kept thinking, man, I wish DC would do stuff like this. Wish DC would do. And I'm glad. I don't want to say I'm glad they didn't because we would get some cool stuff. But the way DC went their path, where the TV shows, you got that universe developing. Now you've got this animated universe that's building and developing, and one story after another, and you're getting the connectabilities and continuations. I'm like, this is some really cool stuff that they're doing as well. Marvel's got their cool stuff. DC's got their cool stuff. In the end, I'm happy because if I feel like, A, I go to column A. If I feel like column B, I go to column B. But I'm still happy. I'm still getting something cool. I'm still getting something I enjoy. And like this, with Gods and Monsters, a complete original story that was like, bam, okay, this is it. This is awesome. This is an Elseworld story. I love Elseworld stories. I'm loving this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the nice things about all this. One of the things I haven't done with this yet, there's different special features on there, and I haven't had a chance to watch these yet. There's a 20-minute documentary, Alternate Realities, Infinite Possibilities, talking about just different versions of DC characters. Calculated Risks, it's a 23-minute documentary talking about the background of this particular Gods and Monsters feature. And then there's a 22-minute from 2010 profile about Jack Kirby's New Gods and the Reign of Darkseid. So I'm excited to watch those things. I'm trying to more and more, because I think what I've done always in the past is I watch the main feature, and I don't go back time-wise and watch all the extras. The extras are, I've done it with the last few that have come out. The extras are really good, especially these documentaries. For comic book geeks, if you aren't watching them, do yourself a favor and do it, because I'm one of the guys that used to skip them just because I've got so much other stuff that I'm doing and so many other things that I want to get to. I've actually now been embracing and watching everything on these releases, and I'm so glad I do. Now, on the DVD version, just to ask you this, you mentioned that the Machinama shorts, I'm butchering them, aren't on there. Are any of those documentaries on the DVD?
No.
Okay, so they're really on the Blu-ray. I got mine through the iTunes.
It's a Blu-ray extra. That's definitely, and it may be on the digital download because I haven't done that yet. But because I'm trying to
digital download is usually just the straight film.
Okay,
if it comes with the available for a digital device, they don't add the extras into that. One of the things that I've been doing them through the iTunes store recently, and there's no right or wrong way to get them. You order them from our I get them from DCB service, which is great. I mean, it's great that you do that. The nice part of
Blu-ray DVD combo, so I got both of them in there. So eventually, when I get a Blu-ray player, I'll be able to actually watch it.
There's a lot of options. Actually, you're talking about what game system to get. That's really a major reason to get PS4. Although I don't, in fairness to Xbox One, I think Xbox One is a Blu-ray player now too. I'm not 100% sure. I would check on that as well. But the nice part is, I would highly recommend, if you're looking to getting a Blu-ray player, If both of them are Blu-ray player, that's a good reason to get one of those too, because then you've automatically got a way to watch all of that stuff as well as play games.
Yeah.
It's silly to buy a standalone if you're going to buy one of those.
And that's why I haven't gotten one yet, because I keep telling myself I'm going to get a console system. I'm going to get one. And I don't. And, and now I'm like, I need to. And I think, it's the Blu-ray player has always been one reason I wanted to get it. And two, I just, I don't know. It's one of them where it's one of those weird things with me, and actually sitting down and it's like, okay, it's time to buy it, time to make the commitment, time to get it, and time to figure out what you're going to do.
Honestly, I'm a PlayStation guy. I've always loved the PlayStation hardware, but I've got to be honest with you. Xbox One has just as many cool exclusive games and stuff like that. Selfishly, I want you on PS4 just because we could play online games together. But to be honest with you, I don't think you can go wrong with either console. I actually think we're in a really good generation of consoles because of the fact that it's much like Marvel and DC. There's a lot of great product coming out on both, on the originals, because the third-party stuff is pretty much the same. Your Assassin's Creed games, your Final Fantasy, all that stuff seems to be winding up on both for the most part. Your GTAs and all that stuff wind up on both. It's the first-party titles, and I think both companies have really good first-party studios, so you're not going to go wrong there. I think it's pretty much a wash between them. But I do think that's, if you don't have a Blu-ray player, I would grab one of those. And for these releases in and of themselves, just because they look so much sharper on a screen with them on the Blu-ray mode. But it's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about these.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Jim, our first voicemail is one from Jack, and Jack got cut off, I think, on his first call, and it didn't record for us. I mean, it wasn't on Skype. So then there was a second call where he called in and followed up, and he's talking about the death of wrestling legend Roddy Piper, and knowing that we're both big wrestling fans, was looking for our input on that. So he started sharing, I started to pick this out from the second voicemail, and you'll all jump in to the second voicemail. He's sharing about a personal story where he met Roddy Piper and had a real positive experience. And I just thought it was really cool that Jack shared this story. So I wanted to give a little intro here that we aren't ignoring the first voicemail. It just wasn't there. So we're going to jump in already in progress with Jack's story and give our own thoughts afterwards, actually.
Sorry about that. My stupid phone died. But this is Jack again, and I'll be brief. The Roddy Piper, even though he was getting ready for doing something official, took time out to talk to me, and I wasn't there buying a picture from him. I wasn't there buying his autograph. I just happened to be buying comics next to him and noticed him and basically said, "Wow, Roddy Piper, my favorite wrestler," under my breath. And he made the effort to walk over to me and shook hands, and we got pictures, and it was just so much fun. He was a great guy. And also, in my opinion, the greatest villain wrestler of all time, followed closely by Ted DiBiase. My favorite wrestlers now are Bray Wyatt and The Miz. And I was curious as to what you guys thought about who are your favorite wrestlers in history or right now currently, since I know you watch. And what did you guys think of, Roddy Piper? And what do you think of Stephen Amell being part of the WWE? Not permanently, obviously, but, as a celebrity guest, this is like the most fun one since Leslie Nielsen, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Barry, talk to you later.
First, I love the Roddy Piper story, just because I like when fans have good experiences meeting people that they like. And I've always been a big Piper fan, too. I grew up with... I remember when WrestleMania 3 was on, and I remember that being the thing. It was Hogan versus Andre, and the whole event was really cool because Piper had a great match on there with Adrian Adonis, and then we had Macho Man Randy Savage with Ricky Steamboat, which was the show stealer of the night. For me, and for most people, actually, that's the match that people talk about. But I remember that day. It was like a huge boxing event or the Super Bowl or something like that, because in those days, pay-per-view was really in its infancy. So the concept of being able to watch this event, there wasn't the monthly WWE pay-per-views. There was, you had WrestleMania. That's what you had. And so this was huge to have this kind of happening. The Sunday programs, or the weekend programs, I should say, Saturday, I think they were Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Saturday, Superstars or whatever.
Yeah.
They were really jobber matches, where you would see most of your wrestlers spotlighted against people who would job to them. And you'd see interviews with some of your bigger guys, but you didn't often see that marquee match on there. And don't get me wrong, I loved seeing our wrestlers even in the jobber matches. And the best wrestlers would put over the guys that were lesser known in the fact that they would give you a good match. But that was how I grew up. To his point, as far as who were some of the favorite wrestlers of all time, Roddy Piper's certainly on my short list. I was a big Hogan fan growing up, but I would say my favorite, if I had to pick one, growing up, would be Sting. I'm a huge Sting fan. I remember when I first started watching NWA, this is before it was WCW, I got into Sting, and it was something, the flashy face paint, the high-speed movement, the energy that he had. I'm talking about the spiky-haired, blonde-haired Sting. And I always loved the character, even through his whole Crow transition, straight on through. There was something about him. I liked that he always stayed with WCW. He goes down. He's my favorite wrestler of all time out of the whole batch. And there's been some great ones, so it's really hard to make that pick. Who is yours?
Oh, man. Well, first off, when Piper died, a lot of people were coming forward, and they all had very similar stories about just, what a great guy he was to the fans and all that. And I wish I'd actually had the chance to meet the guy, just because, he was one of those, I absolutely loved him as a villain, loved him as a heel. And then as I grew older and I really started understanding the role of the heel in wrestling, I really just appreciated just how amazing he was, because you hated him, but then you would sit there and respect the work he's doing. And you would still cheer at points in time for him, but in the end, you always knew he was the villain. So you always did have to boo him. And it was just, he had that wonderful balance of just how he handled it. But for me, as a kid, I was and always shall still be a Hulkamaniac, man. It just, I still remember, the Hulk matches, and anytime he came on, and, you sit there and you'd watch and you'd get all excited. And, when he got hurt, and, when he slammed Andre, when he went up against, King Kong Bundy, and it's all the stuff, all the drama that was Hogan, back in the day, was always that guy that I would always watch for Hogan. And then when he wasn't on a lot, the other person I always really liked was the Bret Hart. I always liked just that style, and just him, and the Hart Foundation, just the Hart family, just that everything that was coming from them. Especially when the things started expanding and Owen came into the ring, and the British Bulldog connection, just everything that I started seeing beyond just the characters. I started seeing the actual people. I was like, this is some neat stuff going on, and I don't know. I think those are, but I do have to give Hogan my props. But I tell you, my favorite, still to this day, Roddy Piper moment was when he destroyed the flower shop after Adrian Adonis had hurt him, and he was out, and I don't know if he was out doing a movie or what he was doing, but when he made his return, and he just smashes that baseball bat and just like, goodbye flower shop, and he's just destroying it. I remember sitting there cheering for him, and it didn't even dawn on me, hey, this is a villain. You're cheering for the heel, just because it was just that great story being told, and you see him get that vengeance and the redemption moment, and and that was I think that was the moments that led up to him and Adonis's match at WrestleMania. And it was just some really great stuff that was coming out from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That stuff was really fantastic, and wasn't that like supposed to be Piper's retirement match when he was at WrestleMania 3, but then he came back and wound up doing more. And I was glad that they did, because he's always been one of those characters. The Undertaker obviously, like so many others, one of my favorites. Do you have a favorite tag team? Mine was the Road Warriors. I loved so many of the Road Warriors matches. I'm going back to the NWA days, WCW days with them. I liked them in WWE, but then they started adding in like puppets, like Rocco and stuff like that. And that was like, do you understand the Road Warriors that you're bringing them in? But not all of the NWA guys made really good transitions into the WWE.
Yes.
But that stuff's fun to laugh at. But the Road Warriors are one of my favorite tag teams of all time. They're probably my favorite tag team of all time. Do you have a favorite tag team?
It is, I do have the Hart families and the variations on that. But I gotta tell you, probably my favorite tag team of all time has to be the Dudley Boys. Mm-hmm. And I'm going ECW Dudleys, WWE Dudleys. When they are Team 3D over in TNA, I always cheer for the Dudleys, and just especially like when because I didn't initially see their ECW run, and it wasn't until after they were already in WWE that I learned about them. I started going back, and the WWE Network, I really got to see some of the stuff that they've done, and so I think the Dudleys are going to be my favorite tag team of all time.
Now let's go to the current roster. Who are your top 5 favorite people right now? Just give 5. And I would say in any order. They don't have to be
good.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like, who are 5 people right now that stand out to you in your mind? Because there's a lot. I think it's a great roster right now, so that's even hard to pin down. But who are 5 names that jump to your mind right now that you're like, these are people I'm really digging right now? Let's just label it that way, because we're going to both leave people out when we do that. But let's just say, what are the first 5 names that come to your mind on people that are standing out? And that way, I would say that's across wrestling right now. Who are 5? Because we'll include NXT and anybody outside of WWE. There are people who've got to be currently wrestling, though. Let's leave that criteria.
Okay, well, John Cena is the first name that pops in my head. He's the modern day Hulk Hogan. He is this generation's Hulkster. So for me, John Cena, I never understood the criticism that's out there from him. He's actually one of those. I love him as a wrestler. I think he's a great storyteller in a ring. I always enjoy his matches. Sometimes I do wish he would lose some of his matches that he's won, just because I think it would be a really cool storyline. But I have no complaints on Cena. Bray Wyatt, the creep factor going on there. When he came out, he lost some steam in his Cena beef, but he's slowly building it back up by bringing back the Wyatt family. Definitely excited with them. Let's see here. Go over in NXT, the Demon, Finn Balor. Mm-hmm. Another character that you were watching NXT a lot longer than I was, and you kept saying, "Dude, you got to watch NXT. You got to watch NXT." And then I started really going through watching and going backstory. He's just a really cool character. Kevin Owen. If I'm going to throw out Finn, I'm going to throw out Kevin, just because I like seeing a non-traditional body type in there. Makes me feel, hey, maybe I could have become a professional wrestler. I see him doing it, even though I don't think I could, because I don't think I have their discipline for it. And number 5 spot, woo! I'm going to go Charlotte.
Look, you're going to Ric Flair? Yeah. Wow. I doing 5, that's funny. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to name 5 that come off my banks. I'm going to start with my women wrestler first. I'm going to pick one. Sasha Banks. I think she's really phenomenal right now. I love her as a heel. I think she's an incredible wrestler. Every match she's in is fascinating to me. I think I'm glad that she moved up to I'm glad-ish she moved up to the main roster, because I'm just afraid that some of what the magic that there was in NXT has been lost. I really just think that the women's division, that NXT division, is really a highlight right now, and I'm glad to see her up there. She's one of my favorites right now. I'm going to echo your sentiments about John Cena. When you look at his feud with Rusev, his feud with Kevin Owens, those were 2 of my favorite feuds over the last year. And you got to give kudos to the people that he was wrestling as well. But Cena is really good at putting people over and really working with people to their strengths. And I thought both of those feuds, while they were lengthy feuds, were dynamic and interesting and engaging. And Cena lost in both of those feuds. And I quite liked how those feuds played out. One of my favorite moments was Cena with Rusev, where he did the STF on him on Raw to get him to give him another shot at the title.
Yeah.
And then he put the water on him and did it again and put him out. I love the intensity, and Cena is just like a consummate worker. And What I love about him is whether he gets the love or the hate, and because different crowds go, different skews with him, he still plays the Cena character so well, and I find it engaging. I really find the whole thing interesting. I'm glad that they didn't turn him heel, because that's traditionally what you do when you get boos like that. Turn him heel. Let's play it that way to somehow make him cool again. I think keeping him in the middle and letting people cheer or boo him, whatever, and still putting on great matches, I think it works. I think people love booing him just as much as they love cheering him. And there's something to that. He gets a reaction, and it's a great reaction. So Cena's a whole bunch of awesome. I think he's really cool and still fun for me to watch. Finn Balor, I totally agree with you on. With or without the face paint, I think he's just a very interesting. Kevin Owens, I couldn't agree with you more on. Kevin Owens is, what I love about him, he's a big man, but he's incredibly agile and quick. Yeah. And he does moves that look like they kill the other person, but yet, they look so good and so deadly and innovative. There were things he did in his matches with Cena. Some of those matches with Cena are match of the year, just because of the fact that he was doing some very unique things over there. And a lot of that I got to attribute to Cena as well. I just think the two of them worked very well off each other in that feud. I was sad when Kevin Owens lost to Cena, because I thought keeping him winning would have been a better move, because I just think it'd be great. Let's make this guy dominant and really go that route. And I think it was a mistake to not do that, because I think they did to him a little bit of what they did to Rusev when he lost to Cena. Rusev shouldn't have lost to Cena either. And it's very tough to say, because I don't want to see Cena jobbed out, because he needs to be a big marquee player as well. But I think with one of those two at least, they should have let them keep winning to make them a dominant. And I actually would go with Kevin Owens on that one, because I think Kevin's on the mic incredible. And I think you should have just made him a dominant jerk, because it really works.
The thing I liked about him, I'm going to interrupt you really quick.
No, go ahead. No, it's good.
Because you said how, and I agree with you. I would have liked to seen Kevin win, but Kevin didn't lose any steam when he lost. No. He played it off. Yeah, I lost, but I'm still, I'm still here. I'm still good. I'm still the best, and he never, lost a beat, and he went right into his next feud, the same attitude, that same type of style to him. That's why, I wanted to see Kevin win, but when I saw him right afterwards that he didn't lose any steam, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool.
I'm trying to think of another person who there's people I want to say, like, Roman Reigns I want to say, but I think one of the mistakes they've made with is booking with Roman. I think it's one of the years where I don't know if the internet was the problem. They screwed up his push. And I don't know if it was on the WWE side, the internet, or a little bit of both. I think he has a tremendous amount of potential. I want to see him there. I'm going to go a little bit on Bray Wyatt with the same problem. I want to put him in that spot too, because I think he's great. And Dolph Ziggler also has the issue. Like Survivor Series, I should say. Dolph Ziggler was like the MVP of that, and they went nowhere with that. What is going on? He's another guy. These are three guys who right now are so on the cusp that I want to see him get there. Seth Rollins falls into that. Like, I'm waiting. Actually, Seth Rollins is somebody I think would benefit eventually from a face turn, because I think Seth Rollins is tremendous. I think that storyline's going to get there, and there's going to come a point where Seth Rollins is going to make that list for me. So I'm going through my list of people and trying to pick somebody right now who really stands out for me as that person. I'm actually going to go out of WWE. I've been watching a lot of New Japan on AXS or whatever that channel is right now. You know who I'm loving seeing as a heel? AJ Styles and what he's doing over there. Yeah. I always liked him over in TNA, and he benefited from jumping overseas, and he's part of that Bullet Club group. I really am enjoying seeing AJ Styles wrestle again over there. So he's somebody who I'm just finding really interesting right now in his matches. So I'm just glad to see him being spotlighted. I hope he doesn't kill anybody with the Styles Clash, because that's an issue that seems to be happening with either people not knowing how to take his move, and that's something they really need to resolve, because I really like the move, but I don't want to see anybody hurt. So that's a thing. But I really enjoy watching him. I think he's just a marquee talent, and that would be on my list right now. Those are my people that are my favorite right now.
Let me throw out even though this wasn't, I'm throwing out a prediction.
Go ahead.
I think we're going to see the face turn on Seth Rollins at SummerSlam.
I'd be fine with it.
I think the authority's turning on him.
Good.
I really, because you see kind of like a sly look on Hunter and Steph's face every so often when he's talking, and sometimes when he's kind of like he's putting himself over the authority, and he's like, hey, and like, oh yeah, they're too accepting, too understanding, like, oh yeah, we understand, like that. I think they're completely setting him up for the fall at SummerSlam, and I don't know if it's going to be to help Cena win, or if it's going to be Sheamus cashing in the briefcase over against Seth and becoming the new champ.
Here's the thing, though. We don't even know if Cena and Rollins is going to take place there because Cena's still hurt, isn't he?
I thought he was cleared to go.
Oh, I hope so. Because he had that broken nose.
Yeah, I thought he got cleared to go.
I hope so, because I'd like to see that go. Rollins is somebody that I would love to see make a face turn, because I think he'd benefit from it. I really, really do. I think he's an incredibly talented wrestler, and I'd love to see him do that. That would put him in my top 5 list to be able to see him kind of have a good face run. I'd honestly love this. I'd love to see the Shield put back together.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the return of the Shield, and with the Wyatt family right now, the feud going on with Roman and Dean. You know, you add the third member of the Wyatt family back in, they need a third person. And I could see maybe them bringing back the Shield together. And I think that would be talk about a pop if the Shield came back. If they played the original music and they all came down together, that would be huge.
Yeah, I think so too. The little tease they did in the match where they were all in it together, I thought was really sweet. And I just love to see it. I don't know that they would ever do it, but I just think it's really cool.
Hey guys, it's Anthony, and I want to thank you for answering my questions last week. As a follow-up to the Judge Dredd question, I messaged you on Facebook. You asked for some good starting points for Judge Dredd, so I sent those to you, and I hope you guys got those, and there you go. Today, though, I got a question about some interesting stories that were proposed but did not happen, one in particular. I've always been fascinated by stories that were proposed or did not happen for various reasons. Like there's a bunch of Chris Claremont X-Men stories that he was going to write after, the famous X-Men 1, 2, 3 with Jim Lee he did and things like that. But in one in particular, though, that I've always been fascinated with, and I've read the proposal many, many times, is Alan Moore's Twilight of the Superheroes, which was proposed to DC in 1987. And maybe for those that don't know, very, very brief synopsis, basically it was a story that Alan Moore proposed during this whole epic kind of ending, like this Ragnarok-style story, and it was basically the end of the DC universe. It was a future story where DC characters had different houses, and it would all end in an epic battle, and 2 characters, Constantine and Rip Hunter, would go back to the past trying to prevent it. But in Alan Moore style, there's a lot of plot twists, and it was a very, very dark story. They did something particularly dark with Shazam in that dark future. So there you go. And it's an interesting concept. At first, the proposal leaked in the 90s. A lot of people thought it was an urban legend, but since then, both Alan Moore and DC have confirmed it. And even on one website, from what I understand, DC threatened legal action, but that's okay. But just saying, I was wondering if you've ever read this proposal, what your thoughts on it is. It inspired a lot of things. It was even supposed to bring back the multiverse even right after Crisis on Infinite Earth. So if this would have happened, DC would have been a very different place than we know it today if this proposal would have happened. So it's pretty interesting. And a lot of concepts have been used, like, for example, Kingdom Come in some ways is heavily inspired by this. Although a lot of people say, oh, Kingdom Come is kind of a copy of Twilight of the Superheroes. I'll say it's different because you don't have that authoritarian aspect. You kind of do a little bit, but not so much in Kingdom Come. It's more about, Superman finding his way than anything else. So there you go. So there's that. And then the other question I wanted to ask is I haven't been following a lot of modern comics. I've just been buying graphic novels, and thanks to you guys, I found the great site of In Stock Trades. So there you go. But one of my favorite reads lately has been JLA, the old Grant Morrison stuff. This is not a new purchase. I've been collecting the volumes. They're up to volume 7. It's not all of Grant Morrison's. You have Mark Waid. You have, I believe, the guys, Joe Kelly and all those guys. But the first run by Morrison is amazing. And one of my favorite stories of all time comes from that run. and that's Rock of Ages, which is one of the best superhero stories forever. So I wanted to ask you, what stands out from that JLA series for you guys? Is it Grant Morrison stuff, Rock of Ages? Is it Tower of Babel? What really stands out from those runs? And you can even go beyond the volumes. Like, I even have a old trade paperback of Crisis of Conscience, which is the follow-up to Identity Crisis. So there you go. But I wanted to know what you guys think of those two things. And again, thanks for answering my questions, and I hope you guys have a great day. Goodbye.
Well, let's start first with the Ragnarok. I read the proposal years ago, and I don't remember when exactly. And I understand where people make comparisons to Kingdom Come. I think, here's the thing. There's certain concepts and certain ideas where you take a look at the authoritarian strength and the authoritarian power that would come from these characters having circumstance that puts them in a position where they feel like they need to run things, or they need to take over, or they need to, and you could see circumstance leading to that. I think what's the difference between what Alan Moore was going to do and what Kingdom Come did is the circumstance that led to those stories and how those writers chose to react to those circumstances with the characters. That's the fun of the multiverse. I think you can explore a similar concept in vastly different ways based on which characters are involved, how they're interacting with each other, and what circumstance leads them to either come together or be brought apart because of the events. So I would have loved to have actually read and see what Alan Moore was going to do with it, because I'm a huge fan of Alan Moore's work. Whether he would have done them as his own characters or, done them, meaning that if DC didn't accept the proposal and Alan Moore decided to do it himself with his own created characters, kind of like what happened with Watchmen, how he couldn't get the Charlton characters, so he ended up creating his own versions of those characters with archetypes. I would have loved to have seen that story come to fruition in some level. As far as creating I wonder if the multiverse thing is what made that story, and I don't remember what was the reason why that story never made it, but I wonder if the multiverse, they had gone to this idea of we're going to eliminate the multiverse and just have one concise universe, which was kind of a thought process at the time. I wonder if that was the reason why that story ultimately didn't make it through. And I could see why they were doing that with what they were trying to do at the time. But as a fan of Alan Moore's work, I would have loved to have read that and seen what his take on the Kingdom Come concept, which it predates that, but what his take on that kind of idea would have been. Because it would have been unique and interesting and would have been just as valid as what Kingdom Come is. But it would have been its own story. And I love that. I love what we get to see creators do their own take on that kind of concept. Where would they go with it, and how do they view it, and what does that mean for them? It would definitely been unique and interesting and fun to read.
Yeah, I've never read the promotion. I've never even really heard of it. I think maybe it was mentioned once in passing. Yeah, I don't know if on the show or just in conversation at a con something. So, I don't have much to say on it other than I would definitely read that story. That is the kind of stories I think that are really neat with where you can go with the character with aging and progression and and even the wrap up, because we read that the Superman of tomorrow, not the what was the storyline that ended the one Superman title?
Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
Thank you. That story. I thought that was a really cool way to end the Superman story and just give a nice flash forward to the future. And just, I thought that was a cool story when we read it for the show. So I definitely would want to read something like that other one.
I'm excited for the new Lois and Clark Superman book, that focuses on the ones from the previous universe because of the progression you're talking about. It's fun sometimes to explore progression with characters, and I like that. I don't mind when they do reboots to make them younger or to kind of, give some different options on direction you're going to go in. But it's fun sometimes to see a sense of larger progression that we don't normally get to see, especially when it's a couple that's married now, has a child and things like that. It's fun to have that going on in one book while you have a new version of Superman going through what he's going through in this book. And I think that there's something to that. So I'm with you on the progression part. I really quite enjoy progression in general. To his JLA question, I don't know, have you read, how much of Grant Morrison's run have you read? I know you've collected some of it along the way. I'm not quite sure how much you read and how much of Mark Waid's.
Yeah, I'm not that up on that stuff. to be honest, because as he was talking, I'm like, I remember kind of reading. I think I read Tower of Babel, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, it's so, with that one, it's. I want to get that stuff, and that's stuff that I look at when I go to in stock trades, and when it pops up on DCBS for the order. I order some of that stuff, but I do have a large stockpile of JSA hardcover trades and whatnot to read.
Here's what I really loved about Morrison's run. And it's not, Morrison's run's very hard for me because I can't pick out one story. I look at it as a run, as one big story. And JLA in general, leading into Mark Waid's run, it's one of the things Mark Waid did really well. He didn't drop what Morrison did. He continued and put his own spin on it while at the same time completely acknowledging everything that came before. And that's something that Mark Waid does with an immense amount of talent. So I just think both runs are really valid. Tower of Babel, let me just editorialize on Tower of Babel. One of the things I really loved about that, and also the Crisis of Conscience, but Tower of Babel in general, it kind of took, let's jump back to Morrison, because I think I've got to set this up. Morrison took each of the characters at the time, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Green Lantern. It was Kyle Rayner, it was Wally West, and then, everybody else was, who they were at the time. He brought them together and really was acknowledging what was going on in their books. So we weren't seeing a divorced Justice League title. It was the centerpiece of the DC universe at the time. So you were looking at that book, and it was acknowledging every event that was happening to these characters in their own solo titles. So, Aquaman was the hook hand Aquaman, and, Batman was this master strategist, but he was also disgruntled and, hard to get along with at times and stuff like that. But yet he was the one the team deferred to when it came to pulling strategy together. He was that mind for the team. And it really reflected where Batman was at this time. You couldn't put this current Batman in the same role. He would still be a strategist, but he wouldn't be quite as ornery. The New 52 Batman, it was just funny to say, you're reading Justice League right now and you know what Batman's like there. He was in JLA just a little bit even more off the edge than that. And I like that because it was reflective of the time with the character. So you had these wonderful stories where it was just the Magnificent Seven at first. Then they increased the roster and they brought in characters like Huntress. And Huntress's relationship with Batman, because Huntress had the crossbow and stuff, was an interesting playoff that they did there. And as they brought in some of these other characters, some of them were rotating casts, you'd see the old guard interacting with the newer, fresher blood. And it was an interesting thing to see. And like Connor Hawk, the new Green Arrow, was in some issues, and he was interacting with Kyle Rayner. There was cool stuff going on in the book, and I really enjoyed the whole Morrison run for that, because it was so reflective of the universe as a whole at the time. So Mark Waid takes over, and I actually almost revealed the villain of the piece, and I kind of don't want to do that right now. I will just say the story focuses on the fact that Batman created these protocols to take down each member of the Justice League, because Batman was very paranoid at the time. So he took these down to protect humanity, sure, but his friends had no idea what he did. And the way he could take them down without describing what they are was vicious. I mean, it was not forgiving. Through the storyline, he realizes that these were his protocols, not knowing where they were coming from or how this was happening. And that was the really great part of this story in how it played out. I encourage people to read it, and just because we didn't do a spoiler warning for that particular piece, I don't want to reveal too much other than to say that storyline is a marquee storyline. And my favorite of the Waid run. I can pin that down and just kind of go, wow, that was huge. And for people that have read it, they're all in that same boat. What I loved about Crisis of Conscience, just to jump to that, similar to what I loved about Waid's run, Crisis of Conscience, when you get to that, was so reflective of not only what had happened in Identity Crisis, it was also reflective of everything that came before in JLA. So that whole run, when you look all the way through, was very reflective of its own history, but also what was going on in the universe as a whole at the time. When there were big event books that came out and stuff like that, they totally embraced it, moved, talk about progression. there was progression in that title. So for people that like yourself, Jim, that like progression, that's JLA as a whole piece, and it's why he's liking it so much. He's collecting them in hardcovers, I'm assuming, or trades, whatever, how he's doing it, and really enjoying reading this run that has a real strong sense of progression. You know what else the book? Remember Superman Red and Superman Blue?
Yeah.
That was acknowledged in the book.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't ever ignore anything that was happening to the characters in their own titles, and I really respected that because it flowed. Sometimes it was like a couple months off or something like that with what it was, but at some point it would always start to acknowledge what was going on in the larger universe, and I think that's really important in those books because you can really put a timestamp on when JLA was happening, and that part's really neat. So it was a good run, and I highly recommend it because of it. I don't know that I could pick one story from either Wade or Morrison. Wade, Tower of Babel, just because I'm a Batman junkie, and what happened in that story, and I'm being really, really vague, but it is a Batman piece, and it really was Wade's stamp on his Batman story, and it's one of the better Batman stories. I really enjoy Tower of Babel. I do want to shout out our show voicemail line, and I want to thank both Jack and Anthony for calling in. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. It's always available in our show notes, which are attached to the episode. You'll always find it on our website in the show notes in the About Us section. So please call in. We love having you part of the show. We love having your thoughts a part of the show. I love the interactivity of the show voicemail line, so thank you very much for calling.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
I want to shout out our show website, ragingbullets.com. It's where you'll find news about what's going on with the podcast, and it feeds right into our Twitter. So if you're a Twitter fan, you can follow us there. Any updates that we put on the website automatically published to Twitter. We have a Facebook group. We also have a Facebook fan page, but the Facebook group I really want to shout out the great quality people that are there having online discussions about everything fan-related, geek culture, the stuff that we all know and love. It's obviously very heavily DC focused, but it's also, they cover everything. And people usually ask permission to post things about blogs or other sites or things that they're doing. I consider it an open community, so I really love the community aspect of the group, and that's due to the quality of the people that are there. All I ever care about is fun, friendly discussion where people can talk openly and honestly about the things that they're enjoying and really have great discussions about that. I've always been a fan of cross-promotion, shouting people out. That's how we have an audience. We rely heavily on all of you and thank all of you for the things you do to let people know that we're here. So that support is something that we always want to extend in everything we do. So please consider anytime posting to that group and letting people know that you're there. And I just want to thank the community because they run it. It's really their community, our friends, and I wouldn't even say just our fans. They're our friends, the people that post there. And I just love browsing a lot of times. With my work schedule, I can't always post. I browse all the time what's going on there, and I just really love seeing what people are talking about, their reactions to things. It's a very fun group, and I can't speak highly enough about it. We're on Google+. I'm on the PlayStation Network. Feel free to add yourself to any of those things. I have personal pages. I really love the community. I love being a part of it, so feel free to add me anywhere. And speaking of that, our sponsor, DCBService.com. I want to shout something out before you mention what you're going to talk about, Jim. They are a digital partner. And if you do mydigitalcomics.com or Comixology, link those accounts and shop through their portal because you'll get 5% of those purchases and it costs you nothing more towards your DCB service order. It adds up quick. It's a great way to get some money off on your order or eventually get something for free if you want to just bundle it up and keep going with it. I tend to do a lot of digital shopping, so I do get all the Digital First series. I really like that, and it's great to have that piling up and be able to use that over at dcbservice.com. So I want to thank them for doing that. And Jim, what do they got going on?
Well, speaking of bundles, they got that great variant, the Monsters cover, variant for the 25 returning issues, 45% off. DCBS price $49.25, but the big news is Batman and Robin Eternal. The sequel to Batman Eternal weekly series is back. Issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 are up this month. Issue 1, 50% off, $199. Issues 2, 3, and 4 are 40% off, $179 each.
I want to talk about InStockTrades.com. Gotham by Midnight, Volume 1 is up there. 50% off, only $7.49. A great series. And if you haven't been reading it at a $7.49 price point, this is your chance. Powers Omnibus, hardcover, Volume 1. I wanted to shout that one out. 50% off, only $62.50. I'm grabbing that baby. They've got things like the Wonder Woman by George Perez Omnibus, 50% off, only $37.50. Definitely stop by and check out their deals of the week because they have amazing things there. The Names, a great series from Vertigo. It's trade paperbacks, 42% off, only $9.85 in the latest releases. So this is their place to go. Check out InStockTrades.com. Do some shopping. Find some things that you're looking for at a great discount, and it's a great way to support our show sponsor. I do want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, not only for supporting us, but for so many other podcasts. And, you know, if they are supporting a podcast that you listen to, please consider shopping there because they're wonderful people. And they do support so many podcasts. They help keep us in business, in all honesty, because they help offset our costs for this podcast. So I really want to thank them for doing that. Podcasts aren't free, and companies like DCB Service and InStockTrades.com continuing to find value in what we do, keeps the lights on. It really does at the end of the day. We don't make money off it in the sense that this isn't a profitable venture for us, but they are so kind enough to keep us doing this for as close to free as possible. And I really appreciate them for their support. They're really nice people, and they've been behind us for such a long time now. So I just kind of wanted to give that personal anecdote to them. Jim, our next episode, we are going to be talking comics again. And you and I have already been chatting about some things that we really want to talk about that have been happening since our last recording. So we'll be shouting out some of those things, recent events with Superman and Batman, of course. There's so many great books out there. We're going to continue exploring post-convergence, some of the changes that are going on at DC. We're going to hit on some of the newer titles we haven't touched yet, but we're also going to touch on old favorites and what's going on with those. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.